Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here. It's all SEC time. You can see the smile on Blake's face. Blake is smiling today, folks.
That's not a smile of happiness. It's a smile
it's
of
a smirk.
Frustration.
Whatever it is, we have turned over every stone and picked all SEC teams.
If you don't
Boy,
think
do we pick
have,
all SEC teams.
Holy cow, folks. Let's just say this up front, okay? You guys have no idea the amount of time we've spent on these friggin' all SEC teams here, okay? I had to choose my words carefully because I'm going to get us thrown off of YouTube. But the amount of time we put into these awards, and just so you know, this is the second time we have recorded this a day later than we did previously because I was unhappy with my selections. And so I decided to go back and do them again. However, we have probably given an award, as you'll see, to maybe half the league at this point. I think we've got about 83 awards to hand out here from a team perspective, okay? Not our individual awards. We'll get to those at the end, but we got enough teams for to field an entirely new NBA. Like the ABA is coming back or something, I think. So, all right, Chris, let's get to it.
All right. We have long had the stance that basketball teams consist of how many people, Blake?
They consist of 5.
Yeah.
Not this year, though.
Not this year.
We've even got one that goes way
beyond.
We went
full-on hypocrisy today.
Oh, we totally did this year. So, presenting our first team, all SEC. And it's funny because I got to make sure this is the right team before I pull it up. We have changed these
graphics department
so many times that I got to make sure we've got this right before I pull it up on the screen. So there you have it. Our first team all SEC selections. Look, we went to 7. We went to 7. Here's why, okay? Well, first of all, because we just it was going to take much longer if we did not go to 7 because we could not have just left it at 5. And I appreciate everyone who can. We have always done that until this year. This year, time is of the essence, and we did not have time because we would have been debating this for days. And so we decided to go 7. And one of the reasons why is because Chris and I had this debate. We both thought Liam Robbins and Colin Castleton are first team all SEC players. Now, people are going to argue against them. Some people will because they missed games, and they missed several games in SEC play. But remember, for us, how we do our awards, these are the entire season. All right. So they are absolutely first team all SEC players, in my opinion. So that's why we wanted to make sure. And so what did that create? The domino effect of putting Colin Castleton and Liam Robbins on the first team all of a sudden created the effect that now we have to expand the second team and the third team to at least 7 players. And here we are. But, I mean, look, Chris, you look at this first team all SEC, Miller, Sheway, the front runners for player of the year all year long. No surprise there on there. We talked about Robbins and Castleton. Kobe Brown at Missouri, absolutely deserving. Wade Taylor, one of the most underrated players. If you're not in love with Wade Taylor's game right now, I don't know what to tell you. Like, he has had a phenomenal season and a big reason why A&M finished second. And then I will say we had a little debate on, do you put Vescovy? Do you put Ziegler? Do you put both? Ultimately, we went with Vescovy by the slightest of margins. I could have probably swapped those two and not had much of a debate on that. I just think it's kind of, I think that, again, you're splitting hairs between those two. And speaking of those two, Chris, I'll get to those guys a little bit later on and another award. But yeah, quite a first team here, in my opinion.
The best part of this was it was your call first to do 7. It was like watching the scene in The Grinch Stole Christmas of where his heart grows 3 sizes. He got all the presents and he's stealing the presents and he's not going to give them out. And then his heart grows 3 sizes. That's what happened with you. You're like, it is not in my heart to leave off Castleton and Robbins because they got hurt. And that's how we got here.
Yeah. I couldn't do it. You can't tell me watching them play and their numbers that they're not first team all SEC guys. You can't. Like, otherwise you're just ignoring what they contributed. So yeah, that's how we got here, and I'm fine with it. I am fine with now the 7-person route because here's what the SEC does 9. Okay, And we've said before, I think that's way too many. So we're going to kind of split it in the middle. All right. We're going to be the ultimate even Steven here. All right. Most people love to do 5 because that's how many you play basketball with. But you know what? People get in foul trouble in the SEC. There's our new tagline for our awards. If you're in the SEC, you're getting in foul trouble because of how many fouls are called in this league. So that's why we need 7, because somebody's going to foul out. And so
Right.
there's our reasoning for expanding to 7. So here it is, our first team, all SEC. Congratulations to all involved.
Blake, when the Grinch's heart grows, what happens to the presents?
What do you mean?
They just keep coming.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
We got a lot of presents still to hand out.
Okay, so that's a good segue. I think what you're trying to do is to segue me to the second team, all SEC, and
Which is
we are
also
now
7 guys.
going to segue to the second team, and boy, there's 7 more right there. Yeah, this is again. Think about this though. If we'd have did 5, we did 3-5 teams. I mean, this is basically
Boy,
your
that would have
list
been
plus one
tough.
more guy. One more guy gets added in this scenario. And when you see our third team, you're going to realize, man, yeah, that guy should have been left off. That should. I mean, so it just would have been impossible, man. I don't know how we would have separated some of these. But our second team All SEC here: Toulouse Smith, Mississippi State; Janai Broome, Auburn; KJ Williams, LSU; Kaysen Wallace, Kentucky; Kai Ziegler, Tennessee; Demoy Hodge, Missouri; Mark Sears, Alabama. Yeah, I mean, start where you think we should start with that discussion, Chris. But I mean, this is we didn't really have a lot of debate about the first or second team once we decided to expand to 7. These were pretty much, I think we were both kind of in a consensus on these first 2 teams.
Yeah, and one thing that stuck out to me, and it really came through as we picked the teams. Man, this was a great year for bigs, Blake.
Yeah.
You had Robbins, you had Castleton, you had Sheboy. KJ Williams, statistically, in terms of scoring and stuff, might have been the best big in the league. But I mean, LSU won what, 2 games in the league? Then it has to matter. Broome had a great year for Auburn, was its best player. Toulouse Smith just carried Mississippi State at times. It was a fun year to watch. And of course, Demoy Hodge was a guy that I think, based on stats, had a first team argument. Zakai Ziegler, you really can't leave that guy off. Kaysen Wallace was phenomenal at times. Mark Sears was the guy that, Brandon Miller was the guy that made Alabama go, but Mark Sears was the point guard who played so well for them. I mean, it's just, these are so many good players. It was, all kidding aside, you can make fun of us for 7-team all SEC teams, and hopefully we'll never do that again. But there were a lot of really good players in the league, man. A lot of really good players.
Yep. I don't really care. I mean, we get made fun of for worse, but it's like we want to reward as 2 people who I would venture to say probably watch as much of the league as anybody. We want to reward what we saw. And again, we didn't just watch one team. We didn't just watch, a favorite team in that scenario, right? Like we watched it all. And I think that we want to make sure we give these guys their props. And that's why, we do have as many players on all these teams as we do, because I don't want to leave some of these guys off. And that seems like, to me, Chris, a great way to segue to our third team, because the ultimate, I don't want to leave any of these guys off, came into play here in the third team. And I want to remember, we also have people who vote on this that are not just Chris and I. We didn't make that clear at the beginning. We do have a staff here, okay? Now, we have other people who have submitted their votes, and we have taken them into account, okay? But we did do a lot of the driving of deciding on where to put these guys. But we did do some voting, and that's why, Chris, for the third team, we ultimately had a tie in the voting. And so what did we do? Anytime you have a tie, Chris, here's what you got to do. You got to expand the team even further. So why stay with 7 when you can go to 8 for the third team? All SEC. Look, it's not my choice. We had a tie. I was not going to, come on. What do we just say? Oh, we're going to ignore the tie there. We're going to take, no, that's not how it works. We can't play one-on-one. I mean, we could do that, but like, we couldn't put the 2 players in a one-on-one scenario is what I'm saying. So it's like, if it's a tie vote, you have to go with the vote. And so here is our 8-man third team all SEC. Jalen Williams from Auburn, Noah Clowney, Alabama, Jacob Toppin, Kentucky, Anthony Black, Arkansas, Wendell Green Jr., Auburn, Antonio Reeves, Kentucky, Ricky Council the fourth, not Arkansas University. My goodness. It's who is it? There's somebody I was thinking of that does the Tyrese Radford next name, by the way. It does the voice where like it's I'm trying to think of what it is. I'll get back to that later. But thoughts on the third team, because as we said, all the voting there were, and I don't want to tell you where the tie came, but like there was a tie between two guys that are on this third team, and so we decided to put both of them on here instead of just one of them. But I mean, again, look at the third team. We said this earlier, right?
I'd play with that team.
I mean, how can we, it's like, how could we leave any of these guys out of there? So I'm kind of glad we had the tie in the staff voting, because I would have been unhappy had any of these guys not been on here in some form or fashion. Whether you think they're deserving of second team, first team, whatever, I would have been unhappy if any of these guys on this third team we did not reward in some fashion. So I'm glad it worked out.
Well, look, again, a theme to lead it off, bigs. Jalen Williams, Noah Clowney, Jacob Toppin was so consistent. I don't know what Toppin's run of double-doubles was when Kentucky kind of got hot in the SEC, but it seemed like he had one every night. Clowney was just another guy that gave Alabama length and made them so problematic. Jalen Williams, I've been saying for 2 years, had just been so consistent. Wendell Green, there's a lot of stuff that comes with Wendell Green, but there's a lot of good stuff that comes with Wendell Green. And that needed to be recognized. Reeves gets 37 at Arkansas. Ricky Council the fourth, I think, led the league in minutes played and was up there in scoring. And I mean, Tyrese Radford, he had to be on here somewhere. So yeah, I mean, it was fun. There were a lot of really, really good players. Yeah, all kidding aside this year. And like, I don't know, people can make fun of us for doing 3 teams and making them 7, 7, 8, but you tell me where we get to the point where these guys stink, because there's not one.
No, and there are still probably, to me, there's a couple guys that I'd love to have on this third team that aren't on here. But it, like, again, that's just kind of, I think, where we're at. Like, when we look at it, we tried to get as many guys as we could, but at a certain point, as we said, we already expanded beyond where we wanted to start, and that was 5 players. And yeah, I mean, you could make a case, I think, for a good majority of these guys to be on the second. Like, you can certainly make the argument, say this guy maybe should be ahead of this guy on the second team, and we, again, that's an argument that can be had. But I mean, man, this was, as we said, we debated this stuff for hours, and there's a lot of factors, and your criteria may be different than our criteria, and that's fine. These are our awards. Like, you can have your own awards and have your own criteria, and that's great. But like, this is just the criteria we used, and we made that clear to everyone who voted on our awards here. Like, this is kind of the criteria we're using. This is where we're ranking the guys, and it's just how it came out. So, yeah, I love all these guys. So put them all.
Wait, there's more.
There is more. Let's put the second team and the third team all on the first team. All right. Let's do the biggest all SEC first team we've ever done in the history of the sport. That'd be 22 players, I think. My math's correct. So, but wait, there's more.
We made a football team is what we did.
Absolutely. I'm fine with that. We could go out there and go up against anybody. Now, to the all defensive team, and look what we decided to do. We decided to play basketball with the all defensive team, because we got 5 guys here. All right. And we said, look, we were done. We don't have time to go through all these 85 players. No. I will be honest, and I'm sure there's somebody that's, we will, this guy should have been there. But like, to me, I was the most confident of all the team selections was this group right here, because to me, I think these are the 5 guys. And yes, there are a couple guys behind them that were certainly on my short list, but I said, I feel really confident that there's no way on a 5-man team I could leave any of these 5 guys off of there for an all defensive team. Takai Ziegler, Tennessee; Devo Davis, Arkansas; Colin Castleton, Florida; Des Moines Hodge, Missouri; Santiago Vescovi, Tennessee. Now, if you're a Tennessee fan, quite frankly, there were times where you could have put the entire starting 5 on the all defensive team. And I don't know, there could have been a lot of argument for that. Mississippi State probably felt the same way at times. So maybe Mississippi State fan, you can I mean, there were times you could put your entire starting five there, given how good Mississippi State was on defense. But I thought when you look at the numbers, Chris, these five guys really stood out, and there were other guys too. But to me, this was the most confident choice I had in terms of just picking one team.
Yeah, you couldn't not have Ziegler and Vescovy on there. I mean, they just disrupted so much stuff all year. Hodge was one of the leaders in the league in steals, if not in the country. Florida was really good defensively when Castleton was in there. I think he was the biggest reason why. And Davis was the guy that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, seemed to get the assignment on the opponent's best perimeter guy
on the ball
as often as
terrific.
not. Yeah. So there you go.
Terrific defender. Yeah. So I agree. I mean, that's where, like, I think Arkansas is one of those teams too. Like, I think you and I were a little surprised that some of the Arkansas guys got pushed back a little bit in terms of our teams, but too, they were the team that finished 10th, and those are kind of things that weigh into it. Obviously, that's not the end all be all, but Davis, impossible to leave him off the all defense. It's just impossible. Like, I wouldn't want to dribble the ball against that guy. And I'm not even a star basketball player, so I can't imagine. It's tough. That guy can defend. So, yeah, good group here on the all defensive team. Maybe next year we'll expand it to 14. We'll see. All right, we've got one team left though, because this was a late addition to our All SEC awards, and then we'll give you our individual awards to wrap up quickly. But this is our all underrated team. Okay. And we decided to do this because, once again, we want to give loves to guys who maybe just did not get enough attention. And once again, your definition of underrated could be different than what we used kind of to make our choices here. And again, our other staff members that filed their votes, these were the players that got the most votes, because I think, Chris, this is like, again, what do you use for underrated? What are the things you value most? How do you kind of define who's underrated, who's not? For us, I mean, even us individually, our criteria may change a little bit, but Olivier Comwat, Tennessee; Alan Flanagan, Auburn; Dexter Dennis, Texas A&M; Will Richard, Florida; Tyron Lawrence, Vanderbilt; Cameron Matthews, Mississippi State; and Nick Honor of Missouri. Again, just a group of 7 here that I had some other guys on my ballot that I filled out, but I'm not going to complain about any of these 7 guys because, I mean, we talked about it. Like, there's just a lot of guys on here that probably you can make the case for to make one of the all SEC teams. But there were just other guys that ultimately were voted ahead of them in our our composite rankings. And it's just think about the guys on the all underrated team. Think about if you're having a starting 5, these guys probably need to be in there. Like, they're pretty good. So,
to me, an underrated guy is a guy that you may not see leading the league in scoring or in the top 10 or rebounding, but it's a guy that does a lot of stuff well. I'm just going to give you some stats for some of these guys. Olivier Comwat played a lot of minutes, 791 of them. Per 70 minutes, here's the stats, or 70 possessions, here's the stats he put up. 17.6 points, 8.2 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 1.1 blocks, 0.7 steals, a 1.1 assist to turnover ratio, and he shot in a true shooting percentage 57%, which is good. Maybe not great, but good. Will Richard, let me find Will Richard. He's another one. Played 838 minutes, true shooting percentage of 67%. I think that led the league among guys who played regularly, and that is a calculation that is not just how well you shoot from the field, but how often you get to the line and how well you shoot it there. Didn't score a ton, 15.5 per 70, but rebounded some, 6.5 per 70. Blocks 0.9 per 70. That's good for a perimeter guy. 1.2 steals, as many assists as turnovers. Again, that's something that gets underrated. Are you throwing away possessions or are you not? Those are just 2 guys I could go on a little bit. Tyron Lawrence had nice stats, also had some big buckets for Vanderbilt. Cam Matthews, we talk about State's bread being buttered on the defensive end. He was a guy out there a lot and playing good defense. So I don't think it's hard to take issue with it. Nick Honor, guy, 3 assist to turnover ratio. That's something that gets overlooked a lot. These guys all did really good things and don't often, in my mind, get rewarded for that as much as they should. So we did that.
Right. All right. So now that's our all underrated team. And we now go to the finish here. Our individual awards. We did not do graphics for these because, quite frankly, didn't have time. What do you know? Technical issues, all kinds of stuff. All right, Chris. Individual awards. Here we go. Player of the year.
Brandon Miller, case closed.
Brandon Miller. Coach of the year.
We're going to disagree. I'm going to go Nate Oates.
Folks, this is going to shock you. And I know it is because I have been pushing Buzz Williams for the past couple weeks.
Have you notified the graphics department on this one?
Chris, you put me on. There's no way I can find that right now.
Oh, please.
We will pull that up another time. I can't because quite honestly, if I do, I'm going to mess something up on our own Twitter. Or it's a lot to find right now. So, ultimately, I think Buzz Williams is going to win SEC Coach of the Year. Personal opinion, I think he's going to win it. But let's be honest. If you followed the Southeastern 14 YouTube channel here over the past year, you know who I'm voting for. All right, that's going to be the Missouri basketball head coach, Dennis Gates. He gets my vote for SEC Coach of the Year. They finished in the top 4. He basically took a almost brand new roster that was picked near the bottom tier of the SEC and turned them into a double bye team that's going to be in the NCAA tournament. So give me Dennis Gates, although it was a close call for me between him and Buzz Williams. And like you said, Oates can be in there. I think Jerry Stackhouse has an argument for it as well. So great group, I think, to choose from Coach of the Year this season. All right, Freshman of the Year. And just as a note here, we realize if you're picking Miller as the Player of the Year, he's technically going to be the Freshman of the Year. But we're going to pick another player just to make it different. So for me, Chris, I went Cason Wallace at Kentucky.
Yeah, if it's not Miller, I think Wallace is an easy choice.
All right. Defensive Player of the Year. I may change my vote from the first time we recorded. Who are you picking, Chris?
Zakai Ziegler.
All right. Full disclosure, the first time we recorded this, I decided to have the cop out and go Zakai Ziegler and Santiago Vescovi as my co-defensive players of the year. I think I'm going to go Zakai Ziegler. I'm going to stay with you. We'll make it easy. We'll go Ziegler. But I think there's a claim elsewhere. All right. And then, so we had most underrated player on our individual list before we decided to do an all underrated team. So, did we even make those picks now? I don't know. Because my pick was someone who's actually not on the all underrated team. What a mess.
Mine might be too. My one of my all underrated guys is so underrated we didn't put him on our all underrated team. That's how underrated
that
this guy
good,
is.
Actually, that may be the
He's
way.
And this guy is so underrated that I botched his name a couple weeks ago in a podcast. That's
Jamin
underrated,
Brakefield.
man.
Is that it? Is that who you're picking?
Yes.
Okay, Jamin Brakefield, Ole Miss is Chris's pick. I went Wade Taylor, but ultimately
playing for a bad team in obscurity also can make you underrated.
Again, your value of underrated. Wade Taylor is our first team All SEC selection, but I still think in terms of getting the love outside of just I don't know that he gets enough love. So I'll go with him. If I have to pick someone from the all underrated team, how about that? Let's make that the qualifier. I will go Olivier Comar from Tennessee. So there you go.
Fair enough.
Anything else? I think that's it.
We did Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, Freshman of the Year,
defensive. We're not doing 6-man, by the way. There's no way.
No,
I'm sorry.
We have 7 men on our first team, so you pick your 6 men.
It just doesn't work. We got
and hope he's healthy.
An entire that's not going to work. So, all right. Well, that was fun. I'm sure we did not get anything right, but it was a fun exercise for two people who have watched a lot of SEC basketball this season. And so it was fun to put these teams together. And again, we had some vote for some other people who do their homework as well. And so on our staff, and we appreciate their input and voting. And that's why, again, I mean, it's a fun exercise, but when you're going through, you're looking at all the votes and you're trying to see what really is kind of the feel on some of these players and where they should rank on some of these teams. It's kind of fun to look at, as always. Yeah, we had fun with that during football season, power rankings each week. And like, it's just, yeah, to me, it's always fun to see different opinions. Chris's opinion, somebody else, opinion on our staff, just kind of see what do people think and how does it differ from what I think about this player or where they should be. And so, yeah, it was really fun to do this, even though it was frustrating at times.
You know what we forgot? Can you believe we forgot something?
What do we forget?
We forgot our tuxedos, man.
Well, man, it's the second go around.
We got those for awards.
That's no time for that. All right, we'll pull out the tuxedos again at some point. But, anyways, all right. There's the final edition of the Southeastern 14 season awards. We're never doing this again because it's just it's brutal. No, this is good. Congratulations. Remember, we are not the SEC. These are not the official SEC awards. Don't forget that. I think somehow that's going to be forgotten on Twitter, but we are not the SEC. We are not making the awards. These are our own personal selections. And quick shout out to Bearded Iris, our great sponsor as well. You can see that on the bottom of the screen there. We'll talk more about Bearded Iris this week because if you're in the Nashville area, you should definitely check them out. And we'll talk more about that as we go throughout the SEC tournament.
Blake and I will be heading to the arena. We got press passes for this whole thing. I'll be there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then I've got to go out of town. Blake will be there the whole tournament, I think. But what is it that they're supposed to yell at us if they spot us on press row?
Southeastern 14, Chris. That's the new phrase.
That would work too.
Because otherwise, people are going to look at you funny if you say good job, ref. We didn't think about that. And we don't want to put you in that situation. So, Southeastern 14. There you go. Yell it out.
Yeah.
Loud and proud.
Yell at us if you see us on press row. Okay. We hope you had as much fun listening to this as we had doing it. Don't get everything right, but we sure try. We put a lot of time and effort into this, and it's fun to do this and be able to reward players who are good and played hard and all that. So we're thrilled to be able to do that.
And we also don't hate your favorite team, contrary to popular belief. We really don't, I promise. So,
and we'll probably be talking about your favorite team in bracketology because we got 9 teams to discuss. We did that yesterday. As soon as we're done with all our stuff this morning, I'm going to go number crunching again and see what happened after the Big Ten played yesterday, because that'll change some things or not change some things. And it's that time of the year. March is the best month of the year. You got postseason basketball. You got college baseball is underway. You got conference play starting in college baseball. You got Major League Baseball. This is what I live for in terms of the sports calendar, and we are here.
All right.
Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button. It costs you nothing. Hit the like button if you liked what we did. That helps too. He is Blake Lovell. I'm Chris Lee. We're Southeastern 14. We'll see you again soon.